Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Waldo, and in this video we're going to be building a custom flatbed for this project truck. This is Billy Bob, my GMC C3500HD. I paid $300 for this truck, essentially saving it from being scrapped. This project has turned into a full-on resto mod, complete with a paint job, a custom gauge pod, custom headliner, and leather bucket seats. The engine is a 24-valve 5.9 Cummins out of a Dodge Ram. The transmission is a 5-speed Eaton Fuller out of a medium-duty Freightliner. The goal is to end up with a heavy-duty truck for towing and hauling future projects. There's been a lot of welding, a lot of cutting, and, shall we say, a lot of persuading. If you're new to the channel and you'd like to check out the full build series for this truck, I'll link to the playlist up in this corner and also down in the description. Now you might be asking, Waldo, why don't you just go buy a brand new flatbed for this? And you're absolutely right, I could do that. I could go spend, I don't even know, maybe $5,000 to $7,000 to go buy a brand new high-end flatbed for this, and it would look great. But what's the fun in that when I can build one myself, get exactly what I want, and hopefully save some money in the process? This is where I've gotten most of my inspiration. The way the sides extend past the cab to meet up with the wheels. The way the back corners are angled to provide more clearance while turning with a trailer. The rub rails, the toolboxes, the headache rack. Isn't it magnificent? Now I'm going to be building the flatbed out of steel. I've already gone ahead and purchased pretty much all of the steel that I'm going to need. Of course, there's a chance that I might have to run to the steel supplier for a few odds and ends here and there, but we have some diamond plate here for the deck of the bed. I ended up picking up a bunch of salvage C-channel for the frame of it. The idea there was to try to keep the cost of the build down. I also picked up some salvage tubing for the headache rack as well. Underneath the diamond plate is some smooth plate that I'm going to use for the side skirts and for the toolboxes and for other miscellaneous things. I've also purchased LED lights, a folding gooseneck hitch, a backup camera, filler neck supplies, toolbox latches, piano hinges, and more hardware than you can shake a stick at. I think that's more than enough of an introduction, so let's get started. The very first thing I need to do is cut these two frame rails down to size. So these are pieces of 4-inch salvage C-channel, and because they're salvage, I basically just took whatever I could get. And they weren't long enough, so I had to extend them a little bit. Basically what I did was I cut them at a 45-degree angle, beveled the edges, welded them together, and then I also welded in a piece of flat bar here just for some additional strength. So to the very back edge of the frame rail, it's 11 feet and 3/4 of an inch. Because 11 feet 4 inches is a standard bed size, I think I'm going to make the frame rails that long. I bought a bunch of new tools and I also upgraded some existing tools. And this Diablo carbide metal cutting blade is one of those upgrades. Beautiful cut. So these are the mounting holes for the front of the bed up by the cab, and the C-channel is not quite wide enough for these to work. So I'm just going to weld a piece of 1/4-inch flat bar to the inside of the channel. I can drill my holes in that and it should be good to go. Like a very silly person, I forgot to turn on my mic. I was just saying to bevel your joints when doing butt welds like this. Shortly thereafter, I realized how silly I was and turned the mic back on. Check it out. New mag drill. The holes we need to drill for this are pretty big, so this is going to help out, make it pretty easy to do. So mag drills typically use these annular cutters. Think of them as really expensive, precision ground carbide hole saw bits. When you're drilling a big hole, this is a lot more efficient because it only has to cut out the perimeter of the hole, and it's not like a twist drill bit which has to drill out the whole thing. So we're going to be drilling some big 11/16 holes for these. It's got a little pilot pin in the middle here to get it lined up. It actually works really well. Makes it easy to align it like pretty darn close to perfectly. And then when you have it in place, there's a little switch on the back here to turn on the electromagnet. You probably can't hear it, but there's a little humming that kind of Gives you some feedback that it's on. Fill up the coolant bottle. Yeah, that worked really well. That was incredibly easy. It feels like it could do this all day with ease. It makes a little bit of a mess, but look at how nice that cut is. So I'm going to be installing some 1/2-inch thick nylon spacers in between the bed and the frame rails. For the front, I think I'm going to put it right about here. What this is going to do is it's going to insulate the bed and the frame so there's no metal on metal contact, and it'll also raise the bed above these bolts here so that I don't have to worry about cutting out little pieces of the bed to make it sit flat on the frame rails. So the rear of the bed is going to be supported by a big thick piece of steel plate that I'm going to bolt between these two holes here and two holes that I'm going to drill up here on this channel. All right, and now to see if this thing fits. It looks pretty close. Sweet. Yep, that sounds pretty good. So I need to address the fuel filler before I go too much farther. Now I don't think that I can have the fuel filler come over the top of this frame rail, because if it does, there's only going to be about 3 inches on top of this before we hit the top of the bed. So the end of the filler neck is going to be over here, and that's just not enough of a downslope in order for the fuel to make it to the tank. So I think I have no choice but to route the fuel filler tube through here. I don't know how they do it on professionally made flatbeds, but I don't see any other way around this. Luckily, it's only a 2-inch fuel filler neck, so I should have plenty of room to cut a hole in here and reinforce it on the top and the bottom. What, did you think I was going to cut all the way through this with a 2.5-inch hole saw? No way. I just did that to make a mark for the plasma cutter. So with that reinforcement done, I think I'm ready to install this and start installing the other pieces of C-channel. Once I have the C-channel installed on top of this, I'll probably add a piece of angle iron to the top of this just to add some additional rigidity, because I don't have a lot of confidence that this is going to be strong enough as is. So the distance from the outside edge of the wheel to the outside edge of the other wheel is about 85 1/8 of an inch. And I'm wondering how far past the edge of the wheel I should make the flatbed go. Maybe I'll just make it an even 86 inches wide, and then I'll have 7/16 of an inch of overhang on each side. Yeah, I think we'll do 86 inches. What is it they say? Measure once, cut twice? No, it's measure twice, cut once. And of course I blow the circuit breaker. Yeah, I have this plugged into a 20 amp circuit and it's only a 15 amp saw, so it's a little weird that it trips the circuit breaker like that, but maybe that's what happens when you buy a cheap Chinese chop saw. This is the part where the bed is really going to start to come together quickly, so cue the music and let's get to it. With the C-channel cross members largely in place, it's now time to worry about the gooseneck hitch, which is going to go right here. Now, this is the gooseneck plate that I purchased, and it is actually a folding unit, so this ball folds down so that it's flat. This is intended to be installed on top of beds, but it'll work fine in this application. Because it's folding, that means I don't have to install it quite as low as I normally would. So I need to fabricate a bracket that's going to hold that plate right here. Now the ball itself is supposed to be 2 to 6 inches in front of the rear axle, which is right here. I'm going to go with 2.5 inches because I want it to be pretty much as far to the back as I can so that the trailer won't hit the corners of the flatbed because this is a pretty big bed. They give you this nifty little template here to figure out exactly where to drill your holes. Yeah, I am really happy with this bag drill so far. It's done a really good job of drilling large holes. Not only that, but the set of annular cutters that I bought actually goes down to 7/16 of an inch. That's where it starts to get awkward when you're drilling holes with regular twist drill bits. This is one of the less expensive mag drills out there, so I'll put a link in the description below in case you want to check it out. Well, I guess we should check and make sure the bolts fit. I'm pretty confident that they will. Oh, look at that. They all drop in on their own. Well, looks like they fit to me. And then this bracket fits right in here. Wow, that is a nice snug fit. And then I just have to line up these bolt holes with this mark right here, which will center the ball this way. Look at that. It's so snug that it holds itself there. Before I get too carried away, I should probably just install this thing and do a quick sanity check, because if I had to change it, it would be a big pain after I did even more welding, because I am going to do quite a bit more welding to secure it in place. There we go, nice. There it is. Yeah, so I just welded in a couple more pieces of 3/8 by 2-inch flat bar, and I think this is going to be strong enough as is. Also, don't forget that the decking itself will be welded to these pieces of channel, so that will provide some additional strength. It is now time to start installing the decking. I already had a helper help me get these pieces of diamond plate up here. They're pretty heavy, so I did need help getting those up. So these pieces of C-channel are 86 inches long, and I'm going to cut these pieces of diamond plate to 86 1/8 inches long. And the reason for that is just so I have a little tiny bit of overlap on each side. Other than that, how hard could it be? It's just cutting them down and welding them in place, right? Look at that for a precision cut, right down the middle of the line. So I'm doing a 45-degree angle on the front corners here, and it looks like it's about 4 3/4 of an inch. Yeah, I think it looks pretty good. This is going to be the hatch for the gooseneck hitch. I think I just blew the circuit breaker. Well, that makes sense. Running an air compressor and a plasma cutter on the same 20 amp circuit definitely makes sense. In fact, I'm actually surprised that's never happened to me before. And where's a hammer when I need one? Here's a clampy hammer. Contrary to popular belief, I do have a slag hammer. I just don't use it very much. What do you think? Time for a new grinding wheel? Yeah, I'd say I got my money's worth. So I have the deck all tack welded in place at this point. And then at the back here, I did the sort of angled corner thing. I was putting quite a bit of thought into exactly what the dimensions of this should be. What I ended up with is I went in 6 inches, and then this dimension here is 22 inches, and then I just drew a straight line across and cut it there. We got Chipmunk Patrol over here, laying down on the job. She's doing her job now. Get him, Aspen. I don't see a chipmunk up there. And now to do the sides of the flatbed. I've decided that the sides are going to be 16 inches tall, which will come down to right about here. And the reason why I chose that is actually twofold. Number one, it's actually really close to how far the cab comes down from the top of the bed. And number two, 16 inches just so happens to be 48 divided by 3. And the reason why that's important is because this is the material that I'm going to be using for the sides, and it's 48 inches wide, which means that I can cut this into thirds, and it makes for very efficient use of material. So this is the first piece of the sides that I'm dealing with here, and this is going to go from the front corner right here all the way back to the very top of the wheel, and then I'll have another piece that goes from here to the back. I don't have any plates of steel that are big enough to do the whole length, but that's okay. There's only going to be a small piece up here that I'll have to weld together. So here I have to cut out the door for the toolbox, and I'm going to do that with the plasma cutter. With a guide here, I can drag it along and get a nice smooth cut. Yeah, this might not be a big enough hammer. Well, I just about have this thing in place. A little tricky. So for the back part of the side here, the only thing special I have to worry about is the fuel filler. And it's going to go in here sort of like that. Not only did I cut out some of the sides so that it'll be recessed, but I also cut out about 1 inch of the deck here, just so that I get a little bit of an angle, because I really want fuel to be able to flow smoothly down into the tank without backing up. So this will probably end up looking something like this. The cap itself will definitely be below the deck. That would be a really big mistake if I had this above the level of the deck, because then things would hit it. I'd really be asking for trouble. I'm thinking I'll just keep working my way around the vehicle. 22 5/8. Now, before I put this back panel on, it's time to cut holes for the lights. This is going to have 2 oval lights on it. These are 6-inch ovals. We'll have a tail light and a backup light, and they're going to be positioned approximately like this. This is the top here, this is the bottom, and I even marked out here where the rub rail is going to be. So I have this nifty little stencil to cut out the holes to be just the right size. And this even accounts for the width of the nozzle of the plasma torch so that it really is the right size. It's amazing what you can buy on the internet these days. Yeah, I really messed that up. Oh my goodness. These lights are supposed to be this way, not this way. I was wondering why they were so tight, and I didn't think to, think that maybe I had it sideways. Oh well. Maybe I can fix this with some fancy editing. Let's see, how does this go? Ah, yes, that's better. Oh, and another thing worth noting is that even though these taillights are not recessed, there will be a rub rail up here which will provide some protection from objects falling from above. Yeah, so it is starting to look like a truck now. We got the clearance lights here, spaced 6 inches apart, as required by law for vehicles that are over 80 inches wide. We have the license plate bracket here. This whole piece is removable so that I have access to things in there. And then up above the plate, I have a place here to mount the license plate light, and this right here, a couple holes to mount the backup camera. What's that? You don't follow me on Instagram yet? It's right there, at Waldo Welds. Yeah, so this one was pretty easy. No fuel filler here. The only thing I had to do was just cut a hole for the 2-inch clearance lamp on the side here. All right, last piece for the sides. It's just this little piece here, but it's got a cutout for a 2.5-inch amber light here. So I'm working on the headache rack now, and I think I've figured out roughly the contour that I want to use. I've cut up this salvage rectangular tubing, and I made 8-degree cuts here and 18-degree cuts over here. And it does a pretty decent job of wrapping around. And then there'll be a piece here that goes across, makes the top of it, and then another piece like this on the other side of it. So I gotta weld this up and we'll see how it fits. Yeah, those are just some little tacks that I can grind off if I want to make any changes. Yeah, I think it's probably going to look pretty good. Just imagine a piece of tubing across, connecting these two. Across the top I have 52 3/16 of an inch. It actually looks really good. It looks like it's right on. One of the things I was most concerned about was the angle, but it looks really close. I'm just gonna weld the top part of the joint for now, so I have a little bit of a hinge effect, just in case the angle is not right. And then I think I will probably complete the weld, or at least tack in the bottom part while it's in place. Okay, yeah, I'm glad I didn't fully weld it while I was up there because I do need to pull it out a little bit. This needs to come to about here. Now we're gonna have a bar that goes across here. There's gonna be a plate down here, and then up here it'll be some flat bar here, and then some round bar this way to protect the windows. And to get the height of that bar, it looks like, we'll say 20 inches to the bottom of the window. Oh, hey, are you all right? Yeah, I cut it a little bit too short, but that's okay, I can fill a gap. So before I go any farther with this, I have to go sandblast this to get the paint off of it. Rust is fine, mill scale is fine, that stuff will come off before this gets coated, but the paint is an issue. I'm actually kind of regretting using all of the salvage steel that had paint on it because sandblasting is a pain. It's mostly a pain because you get so messy, but there's also the cost of the abrasive itself. I've probably spent about $100 just on abrasive alone just to clean off this steel because it was salvage. So even if I did save a little bit of money getting salvage steel, I don't think it was worth it because of the amount of time and trouble I had to spend cleaning it. Yeah, so sandblasting, I am not a fan of it. In any case, I got it done. This thing's all sandblasted. In addition to that, I also got this plate cut out to fit the bottom portion of this, so I'm just gonna weld this in, and then we can start working on the top part. Well, I spent quite a bit of time fabricating this, and here it is. We've got protection for the windows, we have mounts for the lights, and the whole thing is fully welded. I'm really excited to see what this looks like when we get it installed, so let's do just that. For some additional strength, we're going to throw a gusset on here, just about like that. It'll come out at a 45-degree angle to match with this edge here. And this is a piece of 3/16 plate. Yeah, so what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Obviously it's going to look better as I finish the toolboxes and cut out the sides for the wheels, which I'm going to do in part 2. Also in part 2, I'll be fully welding it, installing rub rails, finishing up the wiring, and adding a nifty little feature that will help make it a lot easier to remove the bed and to reinstall it as well. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to follow along with the project. As Christian from LR Time says, whatever you do, don't unsubscribe. Yeah, so I just welded in a couple more pieces of, ooh, that's hot. Deer flies found me. Just waiting for the sun to go back behind a cloud.